Marshall.
Now, the EFF has once again raised concerns at what the party calls draconian policies, where the government and the private sector are forcing employees to subscribe to particular medical aid schemes despite exorbitant costs of these schemes. Now, in a statement, the EFF has called on the Department of Public Service and Government to allow government employees to utilize a medical aid scheme of their own choice and not force them to utilize a government Employees Medical Aid Scheme, or GEMS. Now, the party says currently the policy is enforced through dictatorship policies and manipulated processes. The party's call comes after a recent circular was sent out indicating that low-cost benefit options in terms of medical aid schemes are to be discontinued as per the Council of Medical Aid Schemes. Let's talk about this now. Naledi Cherwa is an EFF Member of Parliament and she joins us now to talk about it. Good to have you, Naledi. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Leanne, for having me for this important issue.
Yeah,
and good morning.
I agree with you. This is such an important issue and a bigger issue than even what you as the EFF are raising. So I think I gave a good summary as to, you know, where this all began and how it all started, that the EFF has started to question what's going on. But perhaps you want to add more to that. I mean, it's been around forever and people have probably thought, why change it? It's working, but it isn't really working. Talk to us.
I mean, at the center of this call by the economic freedom fighters is that we primarily have an issue, right? Because the Council for Medical Aid Schemes comes out and releases 3 circulars, Circular 80, 82, and 56, which then fundamentally will see an end to the low-cost benefit options. And now we have to look at who are the people that are using this low-cost benefit option. It's people who are not in the upper class, who are barely making it to middle class, your petrol attendants, your domestic workers, your security guards, who rely on medical insurance to be able to access quality healthcare, because we know that our public healthcare sector has basically collapsed over the past 10 years, right? And now the government and the Council of Medical Aid Schemes is coming out to say that you will no longer be allowed to pay your 150 or 200 rands to have unlimited doctor visitations and to get your chronic medication. And this is done in the interest of protecting the monopoly of medical aid schemes, because what it then does is that it pushes the very same people who this kind of option was made for, who can't afford private healthcare, who have to make other alternatives to get access to quality healthcare, who will no longer be able to do that, because the CMS has basically called an end to low-cost benefit options. And it's primarily a crisis because it then means you can't say that the NHI is the reason why you are doing this. And yet the NHI has been phased in completely and will only be phased in completely in 2026. And we know our crisis with the ANC government. That is on paper that the NHI will be phased in 2026, but we know that the reality will probably be otherwise. And now this leaves a big group of people who've been paying 200 rand, 150 a month to be able to see doctors, to be able to get their chronic medication, who will no longer be able to do that. And this is happening during a pandemic, a global pandemic. So primarily as the economic freedom fighters, we are calling an end to these circulars. They must be withdrawn with immediate effect, and people must be able to choose which kind of medical alternative option they want to get into, whether they are affording it or not, and that there should not be any draconian policies that are able to stop people from making other alternatives and exploring other options of ensuring that they have access to quality health care.
Yeah, I mean, it almost just doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, why would these people not be allowed to go an alternative route? What are the reasons given?
I mean, there's many reasons that we can basically explore, but I think a primary reason is that this is done in the interest to protect the medical aid industry, which is a very big industry. First and foremost, the CMS has like a very low human resource capacity, which they've raised constantly in the Portfolio Committee of Health. Now, this is a problem because they are meant to navigate and to regulate a multi-billion industry, which is the medical aid industry, right? And then even those people who have access to medical aids cannot use them subsequently for the whole year because the funds run out. And then you find that when on GEMS, by the time it's June, you no longer have access to private healthcare because your benefits have ran out, right? So the people that are primarily being protected in this whole debacle are the medical aid schemes who make billions each and every year from a healthcare system, from a two-tier healthcare system that is not even consistent and cannot even sustain the 10% of people. And now for this to continue, for it to not have disturbances, because now the low-cost benefit, there's going to be options that, oh no, you don't have to pay 4,000 Rand or 3,000 Rand if you don't use it all the time, right? And then you're able to pay your 150 and 200 Rand, but you still get your doctor's visits and you're still able to fetch your chronic medication. Now with the CMS calling an end to low-cost benefit options means that this particular option will no longer be viable. Now, if you're going to say the reason is the NHI, shouldn't you then start primarily with the big medical aid schemes because they will otherwise be phased out as the first step into ushering the NHI and not necessarily the low-cost benefit option? Because what happens in the coming 5 years when we are waiting for the NHI to be implemented fully and completely and phased in by 2026? What do the security guards use as an alternative healthcare option? What do the petrol attendants use? The domestic workers? What do the people who have a collapsed public healthcare system in rural areas, in township areas, in informal settlements, where do those people go? Because then what you're also doing is that you are then overwhelming the public healthcare system, which you have been complaining about over the past year, that no, the COVID pandemic has basically set us back, right? And now you come in and you cut the low-cost benefit option, which has allowed room to ventilate for the public healthcare sector. And now you're cutting that off and sending the very big cohort of people back into the public healthcare sector. But most importantly, you are taking money and quality healthcare away from people who need it the most. And that does not make sense. And that's why we also call for the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Health to account with immediate effect. It cannot be that during a global pandemic, the low-cost benefit option, which is used by very poor people, is cut out as the first step of ushering the NHI. If it is a genuine call, then let it be that the medical aid schemes, your momentums, your discoveries, your PAMEDs, which we use in Parliament, and your GEMS should be the ones that pull back first and not the low-cost benefit option for medical insurance. Yeah. That can be a logical way to go about ushering the national health insurance.
You know, I mean, this goes back, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, this goes back a long time with the EFF. This has been since at least 2015, I mean, where you've raised the alarm bells with PAMED saying that why should we be forced to use this? And we will not use this medical aid scheme, and we need the freedom of choice to be able to do that. So, I mean, you're talking about one issue, but there are so many issues around this. I mean, as parliamentarians, if you can't choose it, if people who work, for instance, here at the SABC, and I'm talking about full-time staff, are forced to use the medical scheme that is provided here, another company uses another medical aid, you are never free to choose. And in reality, if you have other medical aid schemes that are trying to get into the industry, they can't. It's impossible when you work in events, these big guys.
Absolutely, because, you know, it speaks to a much more bigger issue, because it speaks to the monopolization in the medical aid industry, right? That if you're a teacher, if you're a nurse, you have no option, whether you use it or not, the money is going to be deducted from you, as is with us also working in Parliament. Whether you like it or not, whether you've applied or not, they are going to take those thousands away from your salary to fund even previous apartheid personnel that used to be members of Parliament with a certain amount of your salary. You can't even choose an option to say, no, but what if I want to use Sizwe medical aid or med scheme? What if I want to use Discovery? What if I want to use Momentum? Because we also have different medical needs. Some of us have children who have different and various medical aid needs, but the monopolization of the medical aid industry is something that should cause a concern for all of us, because it means that there are systems that are given leeway by the government to not only take a stronghold as big medical aid schemes, but also are able to navigate around taking accountability, because there's also a big list of a backlog in the CMS in relation to grievances raised in regards to medical aids, because they are big, right? And they get to bully people and able to get away with it because they are so big and so monopolized. And the government and the CMS is letting that happen while they are watching, and even cementing the foundation of ensuring a bigger monopoly even around these medical aid schemes. And it cannot be accepted that we are forced to use a particular medical aid scheme, whether you like it or not, by virtue of being a government employee or being a public representative. It is beyond your control, of which, if even you want to use a medical aid, because you could have other priorities. We are community servants, we are community activists at heart, and we have community problems that we have to deal with. But now we have to also sustain or live with the fact that whether I like it or not, the Parliament Medical Aid Scheme is going to be deducted from my salary, and there's nothing I can do about it. That is a dictatorship. It is absolutely draconian policies that should be looked into, especially because now they are about to affect the most poor in society who are not even making minimum wage. And now they can get a leeway of making alternative options of accessing quality healthcare. And this is happening during a total collapse of the public healthcare system, where people do not have access to quality healthcare, and also this during a global pandemic. Now, it means that there are bigger role players who are being protected by these circulars, and they are hoping to get away with it because there isn't much outcry and outrage besides from the EFF. And that is why we want to raise society as well, that there's a group of people who will no longer have quality healthcare, who will no longer have choice, because the CMS, under the leadership of Minister Joe Phaahla, are taking away the one option that is able to create an alternative medical option for the poorest in society.
Yeah, and the worry with this is, of course, the NHI. You touched on that, and the National Health Insurance, which, I mean, I don't know if there's a date this is going to roll out. I don't know. None of us really do know, but taking away this access is a very big problem. And you yourself mentioned it in one of your earlier answers, that saying, you know, if it's on the horizon, yes, then great, phase out this so that the poor are covered. But right now, you've got this big gap, and perhaps 5 years down the line, or however long NHI is going to take, it is not there as yet. Where do you sit with NHI, though, as the EFF?
I mean, the NHI, there could be an alternative and a better medical aids, medical healthcare system that could be built. And I mean, we've got examples in Cuba, where there is a one-tier system, a healthcare system in the country. But what the NHI does is to present a two-tier system as if it were one, first and foremost, right? Now, the intention is obviously genuine because you want quality healthcare for everybody. But are the internal referral systems, for example, some of the policies within the bill lead us to actually interrogate much more than what meets the eye, because then it means that we have a two-tier system where the government is basically outsourcing private healthcare and paying for it, which will basically make things better, especially for people living in cosmopolitan areas. But what does that then mean for people living in rural and township areas? It means the NHI has to expand beyond what is currently being done and also include how it plans to deal with the infrastructural and resource issues in the public healthcare sector, which are not encapsulated in the NHI. And though the intentions are genuine, though the intention is to make quality healthcare accessible to everybody, it means we have to scope in much more deeper than just at eye level to say, no, you no longer have to pay for healthcare, and you can all access equal healthcare. When we know that structurally, geographically, economically, and all these other influences that influence, which is our first point of contact in regards to healthcare, because there's a policy there in the NHI that says your first point of healthcare, so your nearest healthcare facility is where you go to, and not necessarily the big private hospital. So if you live in a township, you're still subjected to the local clinic, you're still subjected to the local general practitioners. And in the rural areas, it's even worse. For example, in the Eastern Cape, where in some areas it takes you 3 hours to get to a healthcare facility, and the clinic is not functioning 7 days a week. And that is why we also presented the National Health Amendment Bill as the EFF, because we wanted to deal with the case that clinics only function for 5 days a week from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. It is not a viable and sustainable option, especially if you want to bring about the NHI. It means then healthcare should be a consistent thing, because it means we are being untruthful about having universal healthcare coverage. If it means that universal healthcare coverage is only happening during the week, during office hours, because we don't get sick just during office hours.
No,
so the
absolutely.
infrastructural, the resource issues, and the building of more healthcare facilities has to be mainstreamed even in the NHI, and not just leave it at the fact that the private healthcare sector will be paid for by the government through a fund that's called the National Health Insurance Fund,
So,
because
Naledi?
it will not benefit society in general in completion, but will leave a group of people, Yes.
All right, now, Lady, I'm going to ask you to keep this like less than 30 seconds. I know it's a tough one, but what exactly are you as the EFF doing? I mean, besides obviously putting out statements, you've opened up a very big talking point, and I know that I can also see that the Consumer Council is also, the National Consumer Forum, I beg your pardon, is also sort of saying, no, this is a conversation that needs to be held. Whatever happened with PARMED and the EFF, where did you get with this? I know that the EFF is not on that medical aid, only a few people are. Is it still the case? Has anything moved forward? I mean, besides statements in an interview like this, what have you done?
I mean, we always preach and advocate for agency and consent and all of those things, right? And that's the primary thing that the system in Parliament is subsequently putting a suppression on, right? So we raise these issues in the Portfolio Committee of Health. We raise these issues with the Council of Medical Aid Schemes. We do community engagements on these particular issues. And we also engage with our constituencies in creating viable options on how to advocate for these issues better. But I mean, at the backdrop of everything else, the Economic Freedom Fighters wants to govern because we've got the solutions. We are sitting on the solutions. And even when we try to implement the solutions, they are being suppressed because we are an opposition party and a minority party even in Parliament. So at the end of the day, the electorate has to make a decision on what kind of options and what kind of policies do they see wanting to manifest and then go in that direction. So at the end of the day, we will continue to tell the electorate that at the end of the day, it is a choice that the electorate should make to usher in the EFF for a proper government that won't promise the NHI and not even phase it in properly and have pilots fail and also on top of that suppress the need and the agency to choose medical options because they are protecting the medical aid industry.
All right,
which is a multi-billion industry.
We leave it there. Thank you. Thanks for talking to us here on the programme. And that, of course, Naledi Cherwa, EFF Member of Parliament, talking about medical aid schemes and being forced to be on these particular schemes. And you who are paying have absolutely no say in the matter. So very interesting conversation there.
Yeah,
that's it.
It is just that, and something that has never quite made sense.
No, that hasn't made sense, and it's, you know, when you think about it, it almost seems, but what? And you never question it. You just know that's what you've got to do, and that's
even
what
if you do question it, that's where it ends.
Exactly.
So it's good that it is now being raised in Parliament, you know, where the decision makers, the policy formulators sit, so they can think about this, and hopefully they will and consider it for the greater good.
All right, we've got to say goodbye. We'll see you tomorrow morning, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.